Okay, so we all spent years of our lives trying to master things like quadratic equations, right? Trying to understand Shakespeare, all that good stuff. But what about the skills that we need to navigate, well, honestly, the most complex subject of all,
Mm.
relationships?
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly the fascinating territory that we're going to chart today,
I love it.
diving into the power and, honestly, the surprisingly overlooked potential of relationship education. And we are so lucky to have you with us today
Excited to be here.
to really kind of unpack this, because we had a ton of you write in about this. And I got to say, I'm with you. I think this is really interesting stuff. So let's jump right in. When we talk about relationship education, we're not just talking about, the birds and the bees, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about a much broader skill set.
Exactly. This goes so far beyond just sex ed. We're talking about really equipping young people with a toolkit for having healthy relationships, fulfilling relationships across the board, right? Romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships, even in the workplace, right? Having those skills to navigate all those different dynamics.
Yeah, totally.
So we're talking about communication, conflict resolution, empathy, things like understanding boundaries, recognizing healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns.
Yeah, like learning how to have one of those conversations that's a little bit, you're trying to persuade somebody, but you also don't want it to end in just like a door slam.
Right.
Or really trying to understand someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Even when, deep down, you guys just disagree. You're not going to see eye to eye.
Totally.
Why aren't we taught this stuff, by the way?
That is the million-dollar question.
Self-important.
It is. And the research is really clear that when we teach these skills early on, the benefits are massive. There's one study that I was reading actually showed that teaching active listening techniques can reduce misunderstandings by 40%.
Shut the front door.
Yeah.
40%.
40%. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, I wish someone had taken me aside, given me those skills back in the day.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got to imagine, don't some schools at least try to address this in some way?
Yeah.
I mean, I vaguely remember something from my 7th grade health class, but
Right. And you're right. There are schools that do have programs that at least touch on some of these topics.
okay.
But the thing is, it's just wildly inconsistent.
Okay.
And very often, you're right, it gets kind of tacked on to sex ed, which, of course, super important.
Right.
But that's just one piece of this whole puzzle.
Oh, totally. So it's almost like we're teaching kids the rules of the road, but never actually letting them get behind the wheel.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. Relationship education is about actually giving them that hands-on experience, giving them the practice and the confidence to actually navigate all the complexities of relationships.
It's like that driver's ed car with the extra brake pedal on the passenger side. Yeah. So, okay. So we've established this is important stuff, but let's get into some more specifics. What kind of impact are we actually talking about here?
Yeah.
You mentioned research. Like what are we seeing in the studies?
So studies have shown that this kind of education can not only lead to better communication, which we've touched on, greater emotional intelligence,
Right.
which, by the way, is a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah.
It's all about understanding and managing emotions, both your own and other people's.
Yeah. Super important.
Huge. But it can actually lead to a decrease in things like bullying and violence.
Okay. Now that's what I call a win-win. We're talking healthier relationships, 80 safer schools. Sign me up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I do have to ask though, isn't this is probably the kind of thing that makes some parents a little nervous,
Yep.
right?
Oh, absolutely. It's totally understandable for people to have questions about, what exactly is being taught, how is it being taught.
Yeah.
But I think the key here, and a lot of the experts we looked at emphasize this, is that you need well-trained educators.
Right.
You need to be using age-appropriate resources, and you really need to make sure that you're being sensitive to diverse cultural perspectives and values.
Right. Totally makes sense. So it's less about, telling young people what to think or how to live their lives.
Right.
More about giving them the information, giving them the skills to make those choices for themselves.
100%. And when it's done well, it can be incredibly empowering for these young people. We've got schools out there seeing incredible results with programs that teach things like conflict resolution, and it's led to real significant decreases in bullying. You've got others that are focusing on what's called emotional literacy.
Okay, yeah.
So helping students really identify and articulate their feelings, and this has been shown to really improve communication, strengthen relationships across the board.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to hear how positive these outcomes can be. I mean, this
Mm,
really highlights just how much relationship skills really are just life skills.
completely agree.
I mean, it really makes you wonder how different might our lives be today if we had had this kind of education, growing up.
Right. What if this was just part of our, standard curriculum alongside math and history and everything else
Yeah.
that we were learning? How would that change things?
Yeah. Well, that is definitely something to think about, and
Hmm.
something I'm going to be thinking about
Me too.
long after we finish recording.